In the first part of this incredible story, we met Dorian, a young worker in difficulty who struggles to find work and a place to sleep. Desperate over his mother's death and impending eviction, Dorian takes a temporary job as a bricklayer, but is soon called in for a mysterious job interview at a luxury hotel. Dorian is immediately welcomed with pleasure and begins to demonstrate his abilities. However, unable to pay his rent arrears, he is evicted from his apartment and ends up sleeping in the dressing rooms of the hotel where he works. But Ingrid, one of the managers, discovers him and takes him to the office of Laurent, the owner of the hotel. What will happen to Dorian? Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to always be updated with our next contents. "They told me you sleep here," Laurent began. "This is a workplace, not a bedroom." Dorian, almost in tears, explained his whole situation. Laurent sighed. "I understand," he said. "I'll ask my secretary to advance your salary, and here are the keys to one of the best rooms in the hotel. You can stay there overnight and be treated like a guest, but during work, you will be an employee like everyone else. Do you understand?" Dorian could not believe his ears. "Mr. Laurent, I do not know how to thank you," he said gratefully. "You don't have to thank me," Laurent replied. "Ingrid spoke highly of you. She told me you were conscientious, you came early and left late. It's not a gift. You earned it with your hard work." From that moment on, Dorian began to sleep in hotels. Even after receiving his salary and being able to look for a place to live, Laurent insisted that he stay. It wasn't long before Dorian faced new challenges. Laurent had a son, Cesare, who lived in luxury thanks to his father's money. Cesare was furious when he learned that an employee had access to one of the presidential suites. "Dad, you gave one of the presidential suites to an employee? Are you crazy?" Caesar said, almost shouting at Laurent. Laurent looked at him angrily. He's a hard-working boy, and Ingrid speaks highly of him. Caesar, usually accustomed to the suite now occupied by Dorian, had to make do with a normal room. He began to make Dorian's life difficult, assigning him tasks outside of his role, but Dorian always accepted them with dedication, without complaining. One day, Caesar ordered him to bring all the groceries to the kitchen. He accepted and completed the task with a smile. Watching him from afar, Caesar said, "Now I understand why my father admires you so much. I wish I were more like you." Before we continue, I would like to ask you, do you think Dorian will be able to gain Caesar's trust and change things between them? Write your ideas in the comments and keep following this incredible story. Don't forget to leave your like if this story excites you, and subscribe to the channel to stay informed about our next stories. 2 years passed. Dorian now had an administrative position and was studying at university. He and Alara often saw each other in the corridors, and their friendship turned into something more. Every time they crossed paths, their gazes instinctively sought each other, and a shy but sincere smile appeared on their faces. The chatter in the corridors became more and more frequent, often ending in laughter that echoed in the air. One day, Dorian took courage and invited Alara to dinner. They found themselves in a small, cozy restaurant overlooking the sea. The evening was magical, with the soft lights and the sea breeze creating the perfect atmosphere. They talked for a long time, sharing dreams, fears, and hopes, discovering that they had a lot in common. The evening ended with a romantic walk on the beach, illuminated by the sunset, and with a kiss that sealed their budding bond. There was also a change between Dorian and Cesare. The friendship with Dorian transformed Cesare, who began to work more often at the hotel. At first, Caesar regarded Dorian with suspicion, finding it difficult to accept that a boy with so few resources could earn his father's admiration. But observing Dorian's tireless commitment, his dedication and humility, Caesar began to respect him. Dorian did not just carry out his own tasks, but always helped colleagues in difficulty, encouraging them and offering valuable advice. This attitude struck Caesar, which led him to reflect on his life and review his priorities. One day, after observing Dorian replacing a sick colleague, Caesar decided to join him in carrying the guest's luggage, a task he had always avoided. Over time, Cesare began to take his responsibilities at the hotel seriously, demonstrating a commitment his father had never seen before. Laurent was surprised to see his son helping carry guests' luggage or replacing a sick employee. Dorian was having a golden moment. He remembered his mother and wished she could see where he had come from. After 2 years, he returned to the cemetery, but to his great surprise, he no longer found the grave. He discovered that his mother had been moved to a more dignified and cared-for place. An hour later, Dorian asked Laurent directly, "Why did you do all this for my mother?" Laurent invited him to sit down and began to explain, "Forgive me for intruding into your life, but it was something I had to do." Laurent told Dorian how he had met his mother, Mira, and the great love he felt for her. He had always suspected that Dorian was his son, even though he was not his biological father. "I have always loved your mother, and I always will. That is why I have done all this for her and for you." Dorian, moved, asked, "Are you my father?" Laurent smiled slightly. "No, I'm not your biological father, but in my heart, you are." Dorian couldn't find the words to express what he felt. He simply stood up, went to Laurent, and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for everything, and for always being by our side," he managed to say. Those simple words made Laurent cry. Even now that he knew he could have an easier life at the hotel, Dorian decided to continue working hard as he always had, like a normal employee. Dorian's story teaches us that despite adversity, we must never give up on our dreams and the values that the people we love have taught us.